Yo, welcome to my channel Ward Draws a Lot. Obviously I'm Ward, or I wouldn't have named it Ward Draws a Lot. So a few weeks ago I decided to go ballin' at the nearest Blick Studio art materials store. I think it's just Blick for short, but I had to say the whole thing. As I was leaving the checkout, my bonobo brain looked at the display. That was a bunch of sketchbooks, and I was like, ooh, what's this? It looks interesting. So the marketing big man won again, and I bought the FABRIANO sketchbooks, which turned out to be buy one get one half off. So let's see if they're actually any good. So there's two main factors that made me even want to look at the book. Number one is the name FABRIANO. I just like that name. Number two, it was a mixed media sketchbook, and I don't think I've ever actually used a mixed media sketchbook for mixed media purposes. I just used it back in high school for like pencil or pen sketch. And the whole idea of mixed media is you could use different medias on the paper. It says medium tooth, resilient surface, and like all this stuff that I was like, okay, but does it work on marker, because that's my main medium. So I opened up the inside of the sketchbook while I was in the store to check that out, and now I'm opening it here for you guys to see as well. And at the top of the little thing, it says it's good for like pen, marker, all this stuff. And I was like, okay, so in reality, or like in theory compared to reality, it should actually work pretty well with markers. But I felt the paper in the store, and I was like, I don't know about all that, because the paper is pretty like toothed, or rough surface is a better way to explain it, I guess, compared for like markers, which you usually want smooth surface paper for optimal marker use. So before I went in and did a cute drawing that I was probably gonna mess up, I took the markers and actually tested them on the paper, and I didn't really like how they felt because the paper was rough, and like I said previously, you want smoother paper. But if it's mixed media paper, it's supposed to be marketed towards all different kinds of things that you're going to use on it, and it's supposed to be stable for theoretically every version of medium, which I personally don't really believe because every medium takes something different. Like, you wouldn't paint on printer paper because it would soak right through the paper. So yeah. But the benefit towards mixed media paper is maybe not everybody could go get different types of paper for different mediums that they own. Maybe like it's just not in the budget, so you have this friendly option over here that could help with different mediums, some better than others. Now, when I was using my regular Prismacolor color erase pencil to sketch, it was coming out like real rough, and I was like, dang, why is it doing that? And then I remembered, and now I'm going to explain to you because I completely forgot. Okay, so let me give you guys an example. So, like Bristol vellum paper, that's good for graphite, color pencil, charcoal, pastel, and crayon. Why? Because the paper is rough. It likes to attach to something like those mediums and make it hold to the paper really well. The divots in the paper help do that. While Bristol's smooth, since the paper is really smooth, it's good for things like inking, mechanical pencil, airbrushing, and markers to give it the best surface. So both of those papers are for those specific things, but mixed media paper is supposed to be for like a combination of all those mediums. So when I was looking at my like pencil, I was like, wait, I'm supposed to use a mechanical pencil because it would fit these divots better, because the paper is supposed to be a mixture of both. So it was like really complicated, but you could use a regular pencil, but just make sure it's sharpened all the time, because you want the best look you can get for this kind of paper. Also, don't press too hard, because it is more prone to leave behind the residual marks from previous strokes. So it's much harder to erase and even get rid of, even after I inked it, colored it, and I erased everything beforehand so I could even ink it and color it. So be very careful with that. For inking, when I was using my fine liners, it gripped it very nicely. It went down smooth enough, and it gave me a little bit more control because the paper was on the rougher side. So it gripped the tip of the nib much easier, kind of giving me less pressure to do the inking perfectly, because it was just an easier experience. Smooth paper and inking on smooth paper is a little bit difficult because there's nothing to help fight against the nib in a nice amount or way, like the way this paper did. So if anything, I really suggest maybe sketching and inking on this paper, because I really do think it was made for those two things, but for using your markers or painting or even maybe watercolor, maybe not. The good thing is though, like I said previously, you could use a lot of different mediums on this paper without the repercussions of your wallet going empty, because you don't have to go get a thicker paper for this or thinner paper. It's a nice overall, it's a mixed media paper. You could use a lot of different media, but keep in mind that different medias will work differently on the paper because it's not specifically made for that medium. So I personally had a little bit of a rough time blending out the Copics because the paper wasn't smooth, and I ended up having to use more ink because the paper wasn't smooth, and I had to overcompensate. So that was like a big factor for me. I don't want my paper to suck up more ink because ink is expensive, especially if it's like Copic ink where it's like $1 billion a tube and they made the tube smaller, so they're like, that's crazy, spend more money. Now remember, please, to take this all with a grain of salt, because I am very like particular with how I do things, and I don't know if it's like an OCD thing, but whatever. I like to do things a certain way in a certain routine and all this stuff. And it's like if I use a different kind of paper and it's not like one that I've already compared to before, my disliking towards something is a little bit higher. However, I don't really dislike this paper because it still did the task that it needed to, and it still made the drawing overall look nice, but with the drawbacks of some things like the marker ink becoming really speckly on the paper or not blending as smooth. But on the bright side, it wasn't expensive. It was like a $10 sketchbook for a 9x12. 9x12 is a little bit bigger than the average 8x10 sketchbooks, and usually can run up like a price jump after the 8x10 size. Plus, it was also buy one get one free, and it's like you could get one of any size and the other one of any size, and honestly, a total would be like $15, and then it was $7.50 a book, which is fantastic for how many pages it comes with as well. So you'd really be able to get your maximum use out of this paper. The only drawback again is that if you're someone who's like me, an illustrator-ish kind of person who likes using marker, is that it might suck up more ink, but at the same time you don't have to spend money on expensive marker paper. But there are also cheap marker paper alternatives, so it honestly just depends on what medium you use the most. Are you more of a charcoal person or more of a pencil person? Maybe you like to do painting. A lot of these factors come and coincide with the fact that, like, hey, if I'm going to use this paper, is it going to be good for what I'm going to be using it for? So that's like a huge thing you have to take in before even considering to buy this paper. The paper was super bright white, which is fantastic for marker ink, so it stands out really well. The quality of the paper itself felt really nice. It's not too rough and it's not too smooth, which is again the benefit of mixed media paper, where you could use a lot of different things on it. So overall, I think I'm okay with this book. I don't love it and I don't hate it, but it's pretty okay. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.